I'm Bill Marion on A Nose for Life. Today I'm on Lookout Mountain and we're going to talk about the conspiracy behind the famous battle above the clouds. The truth about the battle above the clouds is that it may come down to perception between two particular generals on the Union side of the fight. Fighting Joe Hooker and later to be president General Ulysses S. Grant.
People have always visited Lookout Mountain, but the mountain's popularity grew in the 1930s when a struggling out-of-the-way park on top of Lookout Mountain came up with a real clever marketing campaign to attract visitors. They hired Byers, who painted 900 barns all over the U.S. with the simple message, "See Rock City." And I'm sure you've seen one or two "See Rock City" signs in your lifetime, even if you've never seen Rock City. People from all over the world have visited Lookout Mountain. I mean, you've got Rock City, Ruby Falls, Point Park, Starbucks. Starbucks? Okay, so there's a Starbucks on Lookout Mountain, but there's a whole lot more.
My name is Bob Adams. I'm from southern New Jersey. Just here checking out the views. Heard there was a lookout. Just kind of look for some outdoor stuff to do. Not a whole lot of Civil War sites up by us. most stories fall down here, so it's definitely interesting. Just definitely interesting to see how these battles played out. The National Park Service done a nice job. These placards. And yeah, having a good time.
Hi, my name is Sarah Bugelli. I'm from the Jersey Shore. I'm currently going to school in Atlanta, getting my grad degree. Everyone said to come to Chattanooga, so I did, and enjoying the sights. It's really cool here. Lots of Civil War stuff that we don't have up north.
The poet William Dean Howells wrote a famous poem about the Battle of Lookout Mountain just 24 hours after the battle's end. Howells didn't actually fight in the battle, but he was so inspired by the courage of the warriors who did fight their way up the mountain that he got a pen and he had to write. And just a year after the battle and long before the end of the Civil War, artist James Walker was commissioned by Washington to commemorate the Battle of Chattanooga in a painting. Of all the battles that took place during the Chattanooga campaign, Walker chose Lookout Mountain as his subject. The painting was a huge hit, unless you've seen Lookout Mountain, in which case you might not be too impressed with Walker's impression of Lookout Mountain, or if you're General Grant, because the Battle of Lookout Mountain, according to Grant, was fiction or poetry.
What happened on Lookout Mountain in 1863?
According to the official war record, not much. The battle above the clouds was classified as a skirmish. Here's the simplest version of the story. Just after 8 a.m. on November 24th, 1863, Union General Fighting Joe Hooker successfully drove Confederate troops from their position located on a flat piece of land halfway up Lookout Mountain. The owner of this piece of land was a wealthy local businessman named John Cravens. Years before the Civil War, John built a beautiful home on his property on Lookout Mountain. And this is important because John Cravens' home is the centerpiece of the Battle of Lookout Mountain, so it's rightfully named the Cravens House.
Behind me is the Cravens House, and this is where most of the battle above the clouds took place. Well, here and along this flat piece of land halfway up Lookout Mountain.
But the military park that commemorates the battle, which is Point Park, it's on top of the Lookout Mountain and not at the actual battle place. Again, it's about a 150-yard grueling steep climb straight up Lookout Mountain from the Cravens House. And granted, Confederate cannons did protect that position, but they were rendered useless because the view of the battle that was taking place at the Cravens House was obstructed.
Well, I'm on top of Lookout Mountain at Point Park, and the scenery up here is beautiful. Point Park is a great place to take your family for a day outing. If you're ever in the Chattanooga area, you've got to come to Rock City. You've got to go to Point Park. It only costs about $5 a person to get in. The money is well spent here. It's a very clean park, and the view is spectacular.
And did I mention there's a Starbucks? So now there's no excuse.
These were Confederate cannons that were targeted in where the battle actually took place. And we are at Point Park. The Cravens House is again about halfway down the mountain, and technically these cannons could have supported the Confederate position, but unfortunately the vegetation obstructed their ability to fire on the advancing Union troops. This is actually where the Battle of the Clouds took place. Most of the action, anyway, took place here. It's not that nothing happened at Point Park. A great deal happened, but not like here. This is where the action took place above the clouds.
Well, now here's the conspiracy. Well, kind of. General Grant, later President Grant, discredited the Battle of Lookout Mountain, essentially stating that it had no real effect on the campaign. He even called it poetry. This also discredited General Hooker's report. Instead, he points to Missionary Ridge, a different mountaintop in Chattanooga, as the place in which the decisive victory takes place. Grant called the Battle of Lookout Mountain pure poetry, and that's the viewpoint held by most Civil War historians. If you don't believe me, just grab a Civil War textbook and there may be a picture of Lookout Mountain, but very little is said about the actual battle. I guess when you become president, you can just change the past. Because Grant's just wrong. And if you've seen the movie Gettysburg, you'll understand why. During the Battle of Chattanooga, Lookout Mountain was a lot like Little Round Top at Gettysburg. We all remember the scene where Major Chamberlain, played by actor Jeff Daniels, yells, "Fix bayonets!" What if the Confederate lines on Lookout Mountain had held the same way Chamberlain's men held Little Round Top? They too were outnumbered and almost out of ammunition. It would change the entire course of the Chattanooga campaign. But they didn't. In what may be the most overlooked tactical blunder in history, General Braxton Bragg made the decision to withdraw from Lookout Mountain the day before the battle above the clouds, leaving only General Edward Walthall and his brigade from Mississippi to defend the Confederate position at the Cravens House. The Confederate troops left on Lookout Mountain weren't there to defend their position, but rather to slow the advance of General Hooker's troops. Now, at first, this seems to vindicate Grant's version of events, only that it doesn't. Both sides of the engagement agree that the battle was intense. The Confederate troops fought hard to defend their position, to the extent of rolling large rocks off the mountain towards Union troops. Witnesses to the battle describe Hooker's ascent up Lookout Mountain as heroic and fearless. Is it possible that the official record was administratively altered, or that maybe Grant's future credibility, having been elected president of the United States, simply made his version more believable? Well, here's the thing. The men who fought there, they have a story to tell. In fact, it can be found on placards all over the park. In 1890, men who served in both the Union and Confederate armies held a reunion on Lookout Mountain. These men provided detailed information about the battle, and that battle information is recorded on placards all over Lookout Mountain, even outside the actual park. These placards provide troop movements and military actions for both Union and Confederate armies. I'm personally grateful for those who contributed their time and money so that we could piece together the events from their perspective over 100 years ago. One thing is for sure, the men who actually fought on Lookout Mountain, at the very least, have a different perspective of the importance of their actions on Lookout Mountain as it relates to the entire Chattanooga campaign. Take that, Ulysses S. Grant.
But you know, it's easy for me to pick on Grant. I mean, as the cicadas all around me are chirping away here at night as I do this voiceover, I think about what it took Grant to get from Vicksburg to Chattanooga, and how he restructured the Army and kind of turned everything in for the Union. He was a great soldier, but so was Joe Hooker. And I really feel like General Grant kind of did Hooker wrong. I've always felt that way, because there was a magnificent ascent up Lookout Mountain by Joe Hooker and his troops. One for the record books. A Herculean task, a Homer-esque charge up Lookout Mountain. I've got all kinds of links in the description below for you to check out this amazing epic battle, and maybe you'll find a conspiracy there, or maybe you won't. But either way, I hope you enjoy learning about some great Civil War history. But my favorite thing on Lookout Mountain, Point Park, is the view. I can't say that enough. It's worth the time, it's worth the $5 just to come up here and experience this view, climb on these amazing rocks. I had to climb up here. That's crazy.
The battle above the clouds is sort of poetic, but it is a battle, and it did happen. Sergeant Levi Ross, Company K of the 84th of Illinois, said, after listening all day to the roar of the cannon and to the incessant and more terrific roll and rattle of musketry, it is a wonder that not every man is in eternity. It was a terrifying battle for both sides, and they fought for freedom.
Well, as I sit out here on my front porch patio at night enjoying a nice southeastern summer night, the cicadas have agreed to be on this video, provided that I mentioned them and then I won't have to pay a copyright fee. Anyway, we really need you to like, share, and subscribe this channel. That way we can grow and grow and grow and keep growing. Listen, make comments in the comment section. Tell me about your opinion about the Battle of Lookout Mountain. Give us some ideas for some new shows. We look forward to hearing from you. Like, subscribe, and share. Have a great day.